What secret will you take to your grave? Way back about 8 years ago when I first started dating my now wife, she was extremely shy about her body and was very reserved because she had never been in a relationship. One night while I was over, she said she was going to go take a shower before we went out to eat. About 10 minutes after she left her room to take the shower, I heard a sound from the bathroom. I got up and knocked on the door and asked if she was alright and got no answer. I waited about a minute yelling to see what was wrong and decided I had to check on her to make sure she was alright. I opened the door and she was laying on the floor of the tub passed out with the shower still running. I picked her up and carried her to the bed and grabbed a towel and wrapped it around her and tried to wake her up. She wasn't responding and I was about to lose it. Luckily, after like 30 seconds she regained consciousness and embarrassingly asked if she had managed to put the towel on herself before she passed out. I lied and said she had it around her when I found her to make her feel better about it. I know it doesn't change a whole lot given that we have been married 3 years now, but I'll take it to the grave if it gives her peace of mind.
What are some guys' secrets girls don't know about? Sometimes we pee on the poo stains in the toilet because we are too lazy to use the scrub. If you compliment my appearance I will probably remember forever. I still remember when a girl in college told me I looked nice with my beard when I first grew it out. I've had a beard ever since. We have the magical power of thinking about nothing. Manspreading isn't a sexual thing, we're trying not to crush our balls between our legs. After a shower we have no problem drying our balls and face with the same towel. Most of the time we try to dry the face first, then the sack. But sometimes we have to go back to the face. We just hope we use an uncontaminated part of the towel. Edit, uncontaminated. My balls are clean after a shower. Just, wiping the balls then wiping my face is just kind of, yeah. Your chances of getting what you want out of us are infinitely higher if you tell us directly. When we want to be alone, it's not that we don't want to be around you, it's that we don't want to be around anyone for a bit. We don't get the hint. Saying I almost broke my neck in the driveway is not the same as asking us to shovel it. In my mind I'm thinking thanks for the heads up, I'll be careful. Oftentimes, we genuinely don't care where we go to eat because we're just hungry and want food. Any food, as long as you eat some too. No matter how you shake and dance, the last 2 drops go in your pants. I'm not staring at you, I'm zoned out thinking about how I'd start a brewery in medieval England whilst my eyes just happen to be facing your direction. Only weirdos choose to piss in the urinal next to you when there are plenty of open urinals along the wall. Also if we have to use the toilet to piss, we tend to piss on the side of the bowl to make less noise. How often we fantasize about saving the day from terrorist attack or something. Pee shivers. Our aim isn't bad, it's just sometimes a weird spray.
How did you lose your virginity? I was 14. Legal age in my country, because my partner was 14 too. Happened to be left alone for a few hours and we were horny teens so we did it on his couch. I don't regret it, but it was pretty underwhelming. Never did it with a guy again. 26 extremely intense seconds. Missionary. I finished sweating over her, panting. Asked her, did you come too? Like a fucking idiot. Doggy style with chitty chitty bang bang on in the background. It was as awkward as it sounds. Lost it with my second girlfriend. I was her first boyfriend so she made me wait almost 2 years. She was going to move away to the United States cause of the aftermath of a hurricane, so we decided to do it in case the long distance was too much. Both of us were virgins. Lunch break at high school. His house was like a 2-minute walk from the gates. We snuck out. He stopped halfway through to look out the window and make sure his mother hadn't come home from work because he thought he heard a car pull into the driveway. Single bed, in a room he shared with 2 brothers. Strangely somehow still wasn't terrible. Young love. In a public bathroom with my girl best friend. It was nice. Really classy. On a Tinder date. I told the girl that I was not a virgin. In hindsight, she most definitely should have realized I was lying. I was 19. Some girl invited me to her party and I didn't even talk to her the whole night. When everyone started leaving, she looked at me and said, "Not you. What's a effed up fact you just can't believe is true?" The youngest person to ever give birth was 5 years old. If bees were paid minimum wage for their labor, a jar of honey would cost $182,000. That sharks have been around longer than trees. Yes, trees. During World War II, Japan bombed China with fleas infected with the bubonic plague. Chainsaws were invented to cut through the pelvic bone to help women give birth. Dogs like squeaky toys because it reminds them of a small animal being killed. Old fact, but everything we smell is just particles of whatever that smell is entering our nose. Smell poop? You have some poop particles in your respiratory system. Was cleaning the toilet and poured bleach and then Harpic toilet cleaner, ammonia. I was coughing up shit for 2 days straight. Turns out I made poisonous chloramine gas. Could have killed myself if I stayed in the bathroom longer. I've heard that in some cultures they will torture dogs and then eat them as part of a food festival. Have a nice day.
NSFW, what was your most embarrassing trip to the doctor? Infected ballsack, crushed my nuts with a milk crate at work, and when asked by the emergency staff how it happened they were confused, spent roughly 10 hours trying to explain how and even had to demonstrate a few times. Found a small lump on the left testicle. I went to see the urologist, and when the nurse brought me to the room, inside there was a doctor with around 20 students. Doctor told me to lie down on bed and take my pants and underwear off, and not to worry about students, how they will be doctors one day as well. He put the gloves on, and proceeded with the exam, trying to find the lump by moving his fingers around my left testicle. After he finally found it, he called the first student, and told him to look for the lump. Every single person in that room was touching my balls. That was weird as F. I had a cyst on my upper butt crack for the better part of a month. One lovely Saturday morning it's gotten so large and swollen that I couldn't even walk or sit down without crying in pain. I'm the first person to the urgent care that morning and find myself laying sideways on a table with a lovely doctor using a scalpel to force an eruption of the volcano that had formed between my cheeks. It was instant relief and used probably 20 pieces of gauze to clean up. I'd say that one. Even worse than getting my balls ultrasound. Went to the ER for stomach pains, worried about appendix, spleen, gallbladder etc. I was constipated. My brother still tells the joke that the one time I went to the doctor I was full of shit. When I had to show my naked butt to the doctor in the hospital and she spread my butt cheeks to look inside, and then a dozen student doctors, interns, came in the room and were all staring at my butt for what felt like hours. Cut the flap of skin that connects my sack to the shaft of my penis with hair clippers. Not only was it a day that they were training new doctors, but also my mom worked for the hospital and saw my name on the computer system, so by the end of the visit, I had 5 extra young doctors staring while I got stitches, but also my mom walked in too thinking something bad happened to me. I had blood in my urine once. Went to the doctor and we figured out that I had popped a small blood vessel in my genital area from jerking off too hard/too often. Doctor, are you sexually active? Me. Not currently. Doctor, masturbation. Me. A lot. To make things worse, there was some college dude shadowing the doctor that day. Anal abscess. Went in to have it lanced, and the nurse was super hot. She was the one who ended up holding my butt cheeks open so the doctor could drain this massive disgusting cyst. I broke my tailbone pretty bad. Apparently the only way to fix it is by the doctor putting a finger in your butthole and bending it back. Fixing it hurt more than breaking it.
What are some guy secrets girls don't know about? Your chances of getting what you want out of us are infinitely higher if you tell us directly. When we want to be alone, it's not that we don't want to be around you, it's that we don't want to be around anyone for a bit. Oftentimes, we genuinely don't care where we go to eat because we're just hungry and want food. Any food. As long as you eat some too. Sometimes we use the stream of our pee to try and clean poop stains on the bottom of toilet bowls. Guys also like to be walked up to and asked out. It's not that we can't take hints, we are just afraid of looking too far into something. If someone is flirting with me I have the dilemma of is she actually into me or is this just how her personality is? I like hugs. If you want something to happen between us, you gotta meet us halfway. If we're not making a move, we are probably doing our best to not F it up. What's the most fucked up thing you did in a sleepover? I was in the bathroom. I could overhear whispers, so I knew they were going to play a prank on me. I thought that the prank would be that they would unexpectedly break the door open while I was in there. So, to counter-surprise them, I decided to only pretend I was on the toilet, and to instead hold the door shut by pushing against it with both palms, adding my weight to the door and preventing it from being pushed open. However, that was not their intended prank. They thought I was on the toilet, far from the door. So their idea was to have a sword thrust unexpectedly through the door. The sword went through the door and then straight through the palm of my right hand as well. Blood went everywhere. The sword went in and out quickly. I have vague memories of turning the sink on and wrapping my hand with hand towels even while blood spurted throughout the room. I don't remember getting in the car, but apparently I was driven to the emergency room. It's now 20+ years later. The rest of my hand is fine, but I have a small scar of light-colored flesh on my palm where I no longer have any feeling. Usually when I mention the story, I just say that I was stabbed through by a sword when I was a teenager, without going into detail on the how and why, which is significantly more stupid. The same person who did this prank on me decided to prank someone else by holding a knife right above a sleeping person's eye so that when they woke up the first thing they'd see is a knife blade close up. Thankfully, that particular incident resulted in only a scream, with no physical injuries. Looking back, I suspect he may have been an unhealthy friend to hang out with. Teachers of Reddit, what is the most disturbing thing your student has ever done? I teach 4-year-olds part-time, which means I usually do art and recreation in the afternoons. There's this girl in my class, let's call her Mary, who is a tiny terror that frequently runs around making other kids cry. Her moves are very calculated: a hair pull, kicking a toy over, snatching art. She waits until the other child is crying before she relents. She never wants the toy, just the reaction. On the other hand, this boy, Jim, is her polar opposite and often the voice of reason in my class. He's a gentle giant, the biggest kid in preschool. He shares happily, is kind during playtime, and is probably the most thoughtful human I've ever met. Well, one day during outside time, Mary kept targeting Jim. He was pretty good-natured the whole time. She would snatch a shovel from him and he would respond kindly by saying it's okay, you can have it, toys are for sharing, stuff like that. Sidebar, remember those giant red and yellow cars that kids sit in and pedal with their feet? The yard has 5 for the kids to share. Mary was leaning against a wall, and Jim pushing one of those cars. The kids like running around with them, so that was normal. Jim was probably a good 30 feet away from her when he suddenly started accelerating. He was aimed like a homing missile, pointing straight at poor clueless Mary. Genuinely believed he would turn away at the last minute or stop. I was wrong. He slammed the car right into Mary, effectively crunching her against the wall. I'll never forget how long it took for her to inhale. I was shaking, I thought he cracked her ribs. Her entire back was bruised, but thankfully no further damage. I was too shocked to be angry. After passing Mary to my co-teacher, I turned to Jim, who was sulking in the corner, and asked why did you do that? He just shrugged and very calmly said I was just trying to take care of our problem. 100% scared of this kid now. Serious, what terrifying confession has someone told you while intoxicated? Freshman year of college, among all the new friends I made that year, there was one guy who was always a goofball. Very laid back, casual, down for whatever. The biggest red flag we got from him was that whenever people were drinking and hanging out, he would always essentially black out. He drank way too much and would kind of spaghetti noodle his way around the party. While also intoxicated, after the party had winded down one night, a few people and I asked him why he always goes so damn hard. While drooping his head a ton, sloshing around, and slurring everything, he told us about how a few months ago, the summer before college started, his best friend called him. They lived in a small town by the beach, and his friend asked him to come meet him to watch the sunset by the water. He biked over there, sat down, and they talked for a while. Everything seemed fine. Then his friend took out a pistol and shot himself in the head, killing himself instantly. Apparently my friend had to call the police while covered in blood, brains, and skull fragments, just totally in shock. And then a few weeks later he went off to college a few states away, still in shock and unable to sleep or focus on anything. He didn't remember telling us that story, and I don't think any of us wanted to bring it up. His drinking habits didn't change until he was about to graduate, by which point he started going to therapy, got a job right after graduation, and seems to be doing better in the years since. Thank God. What is the worst thing you've overheard while pretending to be asleep? When I was a kid, I used to be scared of monsters or something creeping up on me in my sleep, so I would always ask my dad to check on me before he went to bed. It made me feel more comfortable. One night, I was still awake when I heard him coming up the stairs and I wasn't supposed to be awake and knew I would get in trouble if he saw me, so I pretended to be asleep. He came into my room and just kinda stared at me for a few seconds, then came up close to my bed, lifted the blanket up, farted under it, turned around and left. It's been at least 15 years and I remember that night vividly. He vehemently denies it to this day, but I know what happened. My friends talking about going into my wallet later and steal my money and then leave before I notice. I kicked them out. On a class trip, I heard a girl talk badly about me to the other girls in my room, saying I was a retard and too dumb to stand up for myself. She said the only reason she didn't bully me out of this school was because she needed me to help her with my homework. Then my best friend stood up for me. She said that I wasn't dumb and just a bit shy, and then told her to F off.
Man, what should girls know about the stick? If it ain't getting hard, it probably isn't because of you. We have no control over it. Just because we are hard doesn't mean we are excited. Just because it isn't circumcised doesn't mean it's not clean. It sometimes needs a brief time out to pee properly during sexy time. 2 lanes merging into one. There is no simple flaccid and erect binary sizes. A stick will be a whole range of sizes over the course of a day depending on temperature, chaffing, horniness, random vibrations, blood flow, etc.
Sex workers of Reddit, what is the saddest request or story you have with a client? I had a client who was a newbie. He booked me for a dinner date. During dinner he started crying. He broke down and told me he had just gone through a terrible divorce. It sounded like he still loved his wife, but she was already engaged to her new man. I ended up seeing this client regularly, and things devolved. The ex-wife took the kids out of state. The kids wanted their cats, so he gave them up too. Both his parents were dead, and he had no siblings. He stopped seeing me for a while when he got a new girlfriend. She ended up using him for his money. The last time I saw him he said he was thinking of moving to Mexico. He wanted to get away. I didn't hear from him and life became busy for me. A few years later I thought of him randomly and looked him up. I found his obituary and it was a few weeks after the last time I saw him. I think he killed himself and I really feel terrible about it.
Those of you who have sex with your friends, why? I mean, she married me, so we decided to just keep it. I'm divorced and started having sex with old co-worker/friend. It's just one of those things like, yo, you horny? Me too, let's fuck. We talk about life and such with no real worries of commitment. They usually are friends before they are boyfriends. Gotta kiss the homies goodnight. Horny. She wanted to and I was a virgin. Who am I to say no? Have what with my what? Men, what's not quite as good as an orgasm but is pretty damn close? Waking up kind of tired still and realizing you don't have anything to do that day and sleeping in, shitting on your own toilet at home after being away for a few days, a pee when you really have to go, when you're a little cold and climb into a nice, warm and clean bed, doing something in public and getting approval from a random stranger, having a migraine go away. Going from extremely intense pain to just feeling okay is fantastic. A piss shiver, if you know, you know. When you wake up in the night and you're dehydrated as F and you gulp down water, back scratches. Hitting all green lights on the way home from work, the moment you put your regular shoes on after wearing ski boots for hours. What's the nastiest thing you've ever done? I wasn't feeling well so I took a nap. I woke up feeling even worse, so I tried going downstairs to tell my wife. I was in my boxers and t-shirt. At the top of the stairs I puked so hard I fainted, then had explosive diarrhea. I woke up halfway down the carpeted stairs, slowly sliding down it on a waterslide of my own poop and vomit. When I was a kid, I went out with my friend and his father's family. We ate Chinese and after my stomach was hurting. I was the first one outside so I tried to fart and sharted instead. I was about to run to the back of the building to wipe and throw boxers away. It was nighttime, but they came outside already. I didn't know what to do so I got back in the truck. It just happened to be the kind where you open the front to get back door open. I rode all the way home, 30 minutes, with shitty pants. They didn't say anything but drove with all windows down. To make it worse, when I got home I had to climb over someone to get out because I was in the middle seat so my ass went right by the daughter's face. About 18 years ago, my wife and I wanted to adopt a child and we were paired up with an Asian couple. We assured them the child would be loved, which was the truth because we instantly fell in love with our baby boy. After about 8 months, though, we started to feel twinges of guilt because our perfect Chinese son was going to be raised in this whitewashed household by two ding-dongs who were unable to provide him with any sort of connection to his cultural heritage or identity. There happened to be a large Chinese population in our city though, so it seemed like a no-brainer for us to expose him as much as we could. We enrolled him in Mandarin classes and we even developed a relationship of sort with a Chinese couple who became his adopted auntie and uncle. We even took family trips to China every couple of years. Flash forward to recently. He's now 17 years old and getting ready to go to college, so my wife and I are helping him fill out the financial aid form, digging through my office for the needed paperwork. I came across his adoption papers and it was only then that I saw it, something so obvious, so painfully brick to the face obvious, something that neither my wife nor I in that stupidity of our youth had registered. The names on the adoption paperwork were Park and Kim. Our son was Korean. What's the most effed up thing a family member of yours has done? My dad's a consummate prankster. His crowning achievement, in college, has since become illegal in 2 states. Step 1, he and several buddies go to a Cadillac dealership at 5 o'clock on a Friday. This was before credit cards and automatic banking, by the way. Step 2, they wrote a check for the asking price of one of the shiny new models and drove off with it. Step 3, they saw the car at a used Cadillac dealership across town. Step 4, the used dealer calls the new dealer and tells him that the car was sold with the dealer plates still on and the price tag still in the window. Step 5, new dealer figures that the check the kids wrote is going to bounce, so he calls the cops. Step 6, my dad and his friends spend the weekend in jail. Step 7, the bank's open Monday morning, the check doesn't bounce. Step 8, my dad and his friends sue the dealers in the state for wrongful imprisonment, and get a settlement of thousands of dollars more than the cost of the car. Basically, the plan was to seem as shady as possible and get wrongfully arrested for it. They had the lawyer set up before they bought the car. Dad used his share to pay for his and another friend's tuition for the year.